Welcome, everybody. I'm Nate Persley. I'm a law professor here at Stanford and also co-director of the Cyber Policy Center. I am the least impressive person you're going to hear from tonight, which is why I'm wearing a suit. And so it is a wonderful event here. It always is a cause for celebration when one of our faculty publishes a book, but especially one as significant and I think is influential as the one you're going to hear about today. Of course, it's Fei-Fei Li's The Worlds I See. She'll be in conversation with John Hennessy. Let me give short introductions of both of our speakers. These introductions could go on and on. Assume they have won every significant award in their fields and are members of every significant society that is honored in their profession. I'll say first, so Professor Fei-Fei Li is the inaugural Sequoia Professor in the Computer Science Department at Stanford and co-director of Stanford Institute on Human-Centered AI. She served as the director of Stanford's AI Lab from 2013 to 2018, and from 2017 to 2018 was vice president at Google and served as chief scientist of AI/ML at Google Cloud, and later served as a board member on many different public and private companies. She's published more than 300 scientific articles, known to many in this room who are her students, and her current research interests pretty much span the entire world of AI and machine learning. She's the inventor of ImageNet and the ImageNet Challenge, a critical large-scale data set and benchmarking effort that has contributed to the latest developments in deep learning and AI. I'll say just, there's so much more that one can say about Fei-Fei, but she is a leading voice also in advocating for diversity in STEM and AI, and as co-founder and chairperson of the national nonprofit AI for All, which is aimed at increasing inclusion and diversity in AI education. She is naturally relied upon in all policy circles, whether you're talking about the United Nations, Washington, here in California, for advice on AI policy. Her new book, The Worlds I See, is more than just sort of a book about AI. It is a real personal narrative about sort of connecting her experiences also to the science and the topics that she studies. She will talk about her book, and then she'll be joined in conversation with John Hennessy. I'll make this even really short. He was appointed here as an assistant professor in 1977, and then he held many significant jobs after that in the university. He was provost. He was chair of the computer science. He was, of course, president from 2000 to 2016, and is in his own right, of course, an expert on computer architecture, has published widely, and as I said, has won every significant award in the field. And so thank you all for coming, and thank you, Fei-Fei, for this book. And now I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. I finally realized how much you have gone through to get here, because the traffic was so bad getting here. So I'm actually quite embarrassed, honestly. I never thought I would be, doing this for the book. This literally came about. And I want to thank Nate and our good friend, Professor Rob Reish, who's teaching right now, that we were having lunch about 2 months ago. And Nate and Rob, both prolific authors and incredible scholars in different parts of the campus that I'm familiar with, asked me how my book is going. And I said it's publishing, and they're like, we need a book party. I'm like, what is a book party? In computer science, when you publish an 8-page NeurIPS paper, that is a party. I never thought there's such a thing as book party. And Nate and Rob just said, leave it to us. And Nate, I know you even changed the flight for me, so thank you so much. I'm deeply grateful for this kind of wonderful colleagues. John Hennessy, thank you so much for willing to do this with me. We were saying off stage that really it's not that interesting to hear me talking. So most of this will be a dialogue of 2 generations of computer scientists and giving just an overview and a honest conversation of where we are with the world of AI. But I do want to use this opportunity to thank some people because, we're so busy in life and so busy making things, building things, trying to study things. We don't really stop and thank people. And since I have a little few more minutes here, I really think it's my honor and my duty really to thank the people who have really helped me. And I want to start with a very special person. You probably wonder why I'm holding this book, because of course she's got 100 books in her office, she's holding one. Actually, I'm holding a book signed by the co-writer of this book. And this book will not come to life if I didn't have my very, very good friend and colleague and partner for 3 years during this whole pandemic, writing every word with me, telling this story. And I really want to thank Alex Michael. Please stand up. I want everybody to meet. I really, because you might wonder, she only came to this country when she was 15. How could she write this well? Well, I didn't. And I do feel proud of this creative process that Alex and I engaged in. But without Alex, this book could not have been around. Of course, in writing this book, there's another special person I need to thank. There's many reasons I need to thank him, but he played a very important role. Alex and I wrote this book at the invitation of a book agent and publisher, and we're talking about AI. I was a nerd. I was excited by telling what AI is to the public. We wrote for a whole year. And then I was so excited, we're done. I don't know, I don't even remember when was that, 2021. We gave it to my dearest friend, mentor, colleague, partner, another very famous person on campus, Professor John Etchemendy. And where is he? Where is John? Oh, hi, John. But don't clap yet. You have to hear this story. I give it to him. He called me and Alex and said, okay, it's COVID. Come over to my backyard. I need to talk to you guys. So we went to his backyard and he held, I don't know, some printed copy of our manuscript and said, this is no good. Go back and rewrite. And Alex and I just turned pale. And then John said something that I was so reluctant to admit, but he would have been the only single person who can convince me of that. He said, many AI scientists and technologists can write this book, but there are so many young women, young people, immigrants, people of all walks of life out there who need to identify with a voice that is not a typical AI voice. And you have a journey that you need to share with these people. And when John said that, I was just like, my stomach was turning because I know he wants me to write a memoir, and that's everything I didn't want to write. In the meantime, Alex was jumping up and down next to me and said, I told you. And of course, Alex also said, it only takes John Etchemendy to convince you. So I don't know if John convinced me, but I listened to John. So John, there are many things I want to thank you, but you have been an incredible mentor and friend, even for this book. This book would not exist without you. I know, I don't know how I can thank you enough. You mean the world to me for what I'm doing here at Stanford. Thank you, John. So in my acknowledgement for this book, I wanted to thank a lot of people who helped me to publish. And some of you actually are in the audience. In the course of this book, you have read different versions. I don't know who are in the audience, but please raise your hand if you have given me advice in the course of the book. So I know some, oh God, Terry. Okay, everybody, Professor Terry Winograd. Professor Terry Winograd is, okay, we'll start with, he read parts of the book and gave me very, very good advice. Part of it is because he's in the book. And even if you're not interested in Feifei's journey, you should read this book because Professor Terry Winograd is in the book. He is a hero of mine. He is one of the founding fathers of AI. He really has, we talked about his early work in AI. And on top of that, he was really unfortunate to be my neighbor. So, and John Edgemundy's neighbor. So Terry, thank you so much for helping me with the book. Who else is in the audience who has read this, who has given me advice? I know some of them are working and traveling, but I want to thank everybody who was in the creative process of this book. The title is The Worlds I See. I have two more worlds I really want to thank. One of the world is the world of science. And the world of science began with the people like Newton, Einstein, Marie Curie, Schrödinger, Maxwell, so many of them. I want to thank them, even though they don't need my thank. They won't hear me, maybe. But they really opened a world that is infinitely curious, whimsical, and inspiring for me, and that was the beginning of my journey. But in the AI world, I have so many mentors and colleagues. So many of you, honestly, are in this audience. I just cannot see all of you. Sorry, that I know how much. You guys have helped me. Many people ask me, Feifei, tell me how lonely it is to be a woman in technology. I do feel it's important to talk about this, but I really want to say it's not that lonely. My mentors and my advisors have helped me so much that without them, I wouldn't be where I am. I want to give shout out to my PhD advisor, Professor Pietro Perona and Professor Christoph Koch. They really let me into the door. I want to thank some of the mentors. I do want to read their names. Some of you might identify, but Professor Diane Beck from UIUC, Professor Bill Daly, who hired me to Stanford, Diane Green, Professor John Hennessy, Professor Jeff Hinton, Professor Daphne Koller, the first badass AI woman I ever knew, Professor Kai Li, co-author of ImageNet, an unsung hero in this journey, Professor Jitendra Malik, Professor Arnie Milstein, who is a clinical researcher at Stanford, Professor Andrew Ng, Professor Sebastian Thrun, and then so many people in Stanford Institute for Human-Centered AI, especially the founding professors and colleagues, Professor John Edgemundy, Professor James Landay, Professor Chris Manning, Professor Surya Ganguly, Professor Rob Reich, Professor Michelle Elam, Professor Susan Nathy, Professor Eric Benjofson, Professor Dan Ho, Professor Russ Altman, Professor Kurt Langlitz, and many more, and everybody at Stanford HAI means a lot to me, and this book wouldn't be here without them. Then I have a very special group of people. I know that they are scattered around the world. And many of them are doing far greater things that I have ever dreamed of. And they're my students and postdocs and advisees. And in the book, I have acknowledged a very small subset of them. I know some of you former students as well as current students are in the audience. I really would appreciate if you stand up, because could you please stand up? I know you're shy. I see some of you. Keep standing up. We have, don't, oh, come on, keep standing up. We have many professors here. You guys don't understand. You make us. You make our career. You make our world. And every single pixel in my world, and that's our inside language, is colorful because of you. I take the greatest pride to have worked with you and to have been through a part of the journey with you. I also want to shout out to Juan Carlos, who's sitting here. Juan Carlos, just say hi one more time. You see how little hair he has now? I met Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos as a clueless assistant professor in Urbana-Champaign. He was my very first PhD student. And Juan Carlos came to this country from Colombia on a Fulbright scholarship. He didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. It was a match made in heaven. And now Juan Carlos is a renowned researcher in computer vision, a director at Salesforce Lab, and an adjunct faculty at Stanford Computer Science Department. And this is the kind of human relationship that I feel so, so proud of. So thank you, Juan Carlos, for entrusting me. And thank you, all my students, for still entrusting me. So the most special world for me, obviously, is the world of love and support. And someone earlier today just told me that this book is a love letter. And I think when Alex and I are writing this book, we actually did call this book a love letter. And it's a love letter for science from a little girl who somehow just fell in love in science. But it's also a love letter for the people who have made my life possible. And I hope you'd read at least some part of this book. There's a person who is very special in this book. In fact, today I just got photos of his grandkids going to a New Jersey local bookstore, holding this book, and they're sent to me, and that's Mr. Bob Sabella. He was a high school math teacher in Parsippany, New Jersey. I met him when I was 15. I barely spoke English. He was this badass math teacher with a Brooklyn accent, speaking at the speed of light, and I did not understand a word he said. And he gave me a lot of tests to do, and I got half of the tests right because the other half with words on it, I didn't understand. So that's how our journey began. And for a kid who didn't know the language, who didn't know anything about this country, he took me in as an uncle, as a father, as a teacher. His whole family embraced me. There are stories of Mr. Bob Sabella in this book that every time Alex and I write, we were in tears. So hopefully you'll identify. And they really symbolize this country for me. This country is not the shiny gadgets Silicon Valley made. This country is not those giant skyscrapers in the financial district of Manhattan that I didn't even have money to pay for parking to visit. This country is the public high school math teachers like Bob, who has the heart of gold, who embrace students from every corner of the world, who just put all their heart, who give us the value of respect, of freedom, of community. And that's what I identify with. So Mr. Sabella, or Bob, as I call him now, passed away. And but today I was looking at his family's group chat. They sent it to me, and I really, really hope that I have made him a little bit proud for after all these years. So I also want to. There are so many people I cannot thank now, but I do want to thank two people who they don't understand my world. Because I do these fancy AI or whatever math equations and software programs, but they actually made the world for me. And And, you know, I come from a Chinese background. In Chinese family, we never say cheesy things to each other. I don't feel I've never said, you know, I love you, mom and dad. But if you read this book, a lot of this, the grounding of my human-centeredness come from them and come from the journey we've taken together. And when Alex and I are writing this book, we were both writing for our mom. Both of moms are battling with healthcare issues, and that also made Alex such a special partner. And both Alex and I were racing against time, we feel, because we don't know if our moms will see this book. And I know, Alex, your mom didn't get to see the final version, and it is a loss between us. But I'm very lucky that I still have my parents here today, and despite their health conditions, they actually came for me today, and I really want to acknowledge them. And in my acknowledgement, I said that my parents braved the darkness so I can seek light. And I think in all of our lives, if you search in your lives, there are people who have braved darkness for you. That's how you can seek light. I really hope that you also reflect on that and feel grateful. And for me, thank you so much, my parents. And I think it's one of those moments. We won't say it in our living room, but I'll say it in public, how much I love you. Okay, so I'm almost done here. Sorry, John, I'm almost done here. So Alex and I, when we wrote this book, we thought a lot about what AGI is. Because this word, right, like my students, we almost laugh at this word because our founding fathers of AI didn't have the word AGI. AI is an audacious a dream of making machines think and do. And but what is AGI? I don't know. But if there is a embodiment of AGI, that kind of embodiment would be a person with, not person, something with so much wisdom, with all the virtues of humans, patience, strength, resilience, love, compassion, with the competency that at least I cannot dream of. They can do all the great work. They can cook the best food. They can, compose music. They can, garden, design a Zen garden. They can raise kids and all that. I don't know if we'll ever get to AGI, but that is my model intelligence, model being. And I have that special person in life. He is a fellow AI scientist. He is my best friend. He's my soulmate. And he's my children's father. And that's Silvio. And last but not the least, the love letter really is for the future generation. Some of the future generation are my students, but the most special future generation are my children. And I sometimes wonder what world I'm making for them, honestly. I wonder what is going to happen. And then I realize the best thing we can make for them is the love we can give them. And I hope that my kids get to experience their parents and their parents' friends' love for what we do, and love for the people around us, for the community, and love for the world. And can you wave to everybody, Leo and Phoenix? Okay, I'm done. Thank you so much. I honestly, I really, I'm so thankful you indulge me. I don't know what's the best occasion to thank so many people who have made me who I am, and this is longer than I thought. But really, I'm so grateful you're here, and I actually look forward to having a conversation with John. Thank you. Which seat?
Have a seat.
Which
Either
seat?
one, doesn't matter.
All right.
So, Feifei, you saved me a lot of hard work because I was going to make you talk about your parents if you didn't talk about them. So, but I think, tell us about the early part of your life. I mean, you're growing up in China, in Chengdu by then, right? What was it like to be a young, growing girl interested in math and physics at that time?
You know, I still hope you read my book, but
You should read it anyway, because there's a lot of great stories. There are just so many great stories.
yeah, but you know, it was I grew up in the 80s in China. I was born in Beijing, and my parents brought me to my mom's hometown, Chengdu, and it was a very modest city. There wasn't much material means. Globalization hasn't hit, at least hasn't. Well, it hasn't hit the world, but it hasn't hit China. It was relatively simple, but there is a sharp contrast that the book tries to describe is the freedom. The freedom not because of the world I lived in, the freedom that of my family life. Somehow, especially my father is a very free-spirited person, and I lived in a world of let's find the next bug. You know, my dad, the best, Alex, and my favorite story of the book is when my dad tells me about his pet bear as a child, and I was just given so much curiosity, freedom, and yet the school was very serious. You know, there's a lot of math actually, and science. But I lived in this contrast between a free home life and a very rigorous, disciplined schooling, and somehow I think now I kind of embody that and made me sometimes too intense, maybe.
No, but I get the impression from the book that a lot of your creativity is inspiration from your parents.
Yes, I think it's because they let me. It's not like they showed me this particular thing. They just kind of let me. They didn't box me into anything they think they want me to be or my teacher wanted me to be. In fact, I think they almost took a little pride for seeing the rebellious Feifei, and that's, as a parent now, I feel that is so precious.
It absolutely is. So when you arrive in the U.S., how many English words do you know at that point?
Put it this way, I had to watch who goes into restrooms to figure out which restrooms I should go. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty small vocabulary,
Pretty
small vocabulary. But you were, even as a high school student, you thrived, even though you started with this giant disadvantage compared to many of your fellow students.
I don't know, John. I still remember my rank at Persephone High School was 6 when I had a lot of ESL class that didn't help because, you know, you have to do AP to get those weighted, and I did do some AP, but not enough. First of all, for those young people out there or parents of young people, my own experience tells me you can never underestimate the resilience and the creativity of young people. You have to believe in that. I honestly, right now, I don't know how I did it. I really don't. You know, I don't feel I'm special.
Lots of hard work.
Yes, just hard work. But there is, if you give that fire in the belly to yourself or allow your kid to have that fire in the belly, the level of resilience and creativity is unbounded.
So in the title, you talk about the dawn of AI. And yet AI had a long history for that and a series of what we sometimes call AI winters.
Yes.
These periods where there were great expectations, but they didn't get fulfilled. What's the break? What happened that really changed that? What was the fundamental breakthrough that, or breakthroughs that really made a difference?
Well, you know the answer, but you're just
I know,
being
but I'm
nice.
getting I want everybody else. I want to hear your answer, Feifei.
But I do want to talk about one thing about AI winter. So when I arrived in America, it's 1990s. We were smack in the middle of the AI winter.
Of number 4 or something like that.
Right, something like the latest AI winter. I had no idea, less than 30 miles away from Parsippany, New Jersey, was Bell Labs.
Right.
It was where Yang LeCun was making convolutional neural network. It is kind of, it gives me goosebumps that when I was studying English 30 miles away, having no idea how our lives would have collided, neural network was being made in New Jersey. And, but that was still winter. Neural network didn't fully work. It worked in recognizing digits.
Digits, right? Very
Right.
simple problem.
Right. So I arrived in grad school Y2K, the year 2000. I think actually, as you know, the public still thinks it's an AI winter, but I think it's the beginning of the change. There are a couple of things that are changing. First of all, machine learning become the lingua de franca, right? Like,
Everybody's working on it.
right. Suddenly we found a mathematical language, statistical modeling, because the earlier winters were logic-based, the first order logic, expert systems, and all that. But machine learning really started to change. And I was one of the first generation of students who are using this language now. Second thing is internet was happening.
Right.
You know, I still remember being second-year graduate student. My fellow grad student said, "Have you used a search engine for papers called Google?" You know, and internet brought data. We didn't realize that, but internet will change the way we view data. And of course, Moore's law was carrying us, right?
Right. So lots more hardware than we expected early on.
Yeah.
But then data is the big.
Right. So it took, I would say, less than a decade. ImageNet was perceived in 2007. Neural network, the deep learning. I remember Jeff Hinton's was it Jeff Hinton's? They coined the term deep learning. That paper was 2006.
I think that, yes, 2006, I think.
2006. And GPU, oh God, when was the first GPU here?
Oh, around the same time, 2008, probably.
Right. So even though the public was not aware, but these 3 important ingredients were being made in the first decade of the century. And of course, the watershed moment was 2012 when Jeff Hinton's students won the ImageNet Challenge.
Right. So talk about the importance of ImageNet. How did you get this idea and what motivated you? Because without that, it's not clear that we would have known that it was really a breakthrough.
Yeah, so again, please read the book.
We're tempting them.
Alex and I spent so much time writing it. I feel like an academic always said, please read my paper. And so what happened is there's a person who's very special in the book. He's not personally special, but he's intellectually special. His name is Irv Biederman. He's a cognitive scientist, a psychologist who was living University of South California. And I was a graduate student looking at this problem of computer vision. You know, AI was broken into little fields, natural language processing, computer vision. I was really interested in the fundamental North Star of computer vision. And I thought that trying to do recognize the world's object is a North Star. I remember Silvio and I were fellow graduate students. We were debating, Silvio is like 3D structure of the world is the North Star. And I was like, recognition. Well, now Silvio is winning the war because now it's all 3D. But at that time, it was really trying to make sense of the objects. And then we're all working on these tiny data sets, right? I remember my PhD advisor, Pietro Perona, gave me a data set of 4 objects: airplane, leopards, car, side view of car, and a Caltech student human face data set. And then Irv Biederman had this paper in 1983 that no one is noticing. The paper, the preprint has typed figures, and he estimated 30,000 categories of objects is what humans see, actually young humans, like by age 6, you can see that. And somehow I noticed that number, and since I call this the Biederman number, it really, really bugged me for years. I don't know how to square away Biederman's number from the entire AI world of tiny data. And it took me 2 or 3 years to just keep thinking about what this number means to us, means to AI, till I arrived in Princeton as an assistant professor. And at that time, machine learning was around for a long time. I start noticing, John, to be honest, I start noticing that I'm writing papers that's all just variations of some kind of BaseNet or support vector machine. I feel like it's not breakthrough. You know, we're always overfitting. We're not generalizing. We're tweaking in the technical jargon, the variables and the representations, but they're not doing the right thing. Till my students and I realized we have to hit a reset button and look from a different angle, and that angle is the big data angle. And then when we thought about that, Biederman's number came back, and there was a serendipity of ImageNet was literally a project someone else was doing, but they're doing it without thinking about big data. They're just doing it for WordNet, which is a linguistic data set of lexicons organized not in alphabetical order, but in group order taxonomy, like a German Shepherd and a Golden Retriever. Actually, that's a bad example. A German Shepherd and a Terrier would be very far from each other in a dictionary, but very close to each other in WordNet. And there was an undergraduate project in the WordNet group of finding one photo per word to show what a Golden Retriever is. And quickly they gave up that project. And I just happened to have heard of this word, ImageNet, that nobody wanted to use, and I asked the professor to give me that name, and with that beautiful name that I didn't claim credit, I thought about Biederman's number, thought about big data, thought about machine learning, and that's the beginning.
And you decided to crowdsource it because you needed to get a much larger, and at that time, crowdsourcing was kind of still a new thing.
I did not decide to crowdsource. I was actually cluelessly delusional. I thought I would hire undergrads to do this.
Princeton undergrads?
They're very expensive.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So I thought I would put some monitors in my lab and hire undergrads to download the pictures and just click on it. And it didn't go anywhere. We were estimating 19 years or something. And then I had another student say, well, let's just use machines to do it. The machine can do some photo recognition. We thought that was a brilliant idea, but after a week, we're like, hey, wait a minute. The whole point is machines cannot recognize.
Right. You need ground truth here.
So exactly. So I was pretty stuck till a Stanford master student who transferred to Princeton said, this is where Silicon Valley really is so beautiful. The Stanford master student said, I heard there's startups using this thing called Amazon Mechanical Turk. And in Princeton, New Jersey, I had not heard of this. And I really remember, John, I went to my computer, I typed Amazon Mechanical Turk. When I saw it was an online market of global workers working on anything you can put up, I couldn't sleep that night. I knew I found my entire world of helpers.
Right. Right.
So I ditched the Princeton undergrads.
So much of that. There are better uses of them, probably. So let's talk about your involvement and your interest in the human side of AI, because I think we all think about this, but there are so many complex issues. What do you worry about in terms of deploying AI, and what do you think is overhyped?
Yeah. So I have a confession on behalf of my generation of computer scientists. We were never trained in ethics. Maybe some of you have on your own have taken ethics classes, but I was busy taking physics class or math class or electrical engineering class, computer science class. So, and then we love AI for its technical origin, right? So all seemed very well till I think it was around 2017. 2017, I had the honor to work at Google Cloud. It was incredible experience. If in cloud business, you basically serve every single business under the sun, every vertical. You work with hospitals, you work with media companies, you work with gas and oil company, you work with the insurance company, you work with developers. We were working with a Japanese cucumber developer, farmer who's using, TensorFlow. You just work, and then you start to realize, I start to realize, oh my God, this technology is gonna change everybody. And before I even woke up to that, we start to have a techlash. We start to hear Cambridge Analytica. We start to have the first self-driving car death. We start to see biased facial recognition algorithms are making really horrendously horrible, predictions of human faces. And we've had our own share of debates on AI and defense and all that. And that was really a wake-up call for me that we have entered the messiness of putting this technology out to the world. Math is beautiful and simple. 1 + 1 = 2. But technology in human world is not simple. It's messy. It has opportunities, but it has consequences. And that's when, John, I came to your office. I went to John Etchmendi's office. I went to, I don't know if James Landy, Chris Manning are here. Where's James?
I saw James.
Oh, hi, James. I was in James' kitchen all the time after my Google daytime work, talking about this messiness. I was talking to John Levine, I remembered. And we start to realize we have entered a new era. This era, technology and humans are coming much closer. We have a different responsibility, not only to continue to develop this technology, but to understand what is going on, to understand how we can use it, to understand the human consequences, to understand the human opportunities. And that's when I feel that I myself turned from a pure technologist scientist into a hybrid scientist and humanist, amateur humanist.
So do you worry? I mean, some people have said there's this existential threat to human existence. I mean, it's a HAL sort of vision of, right, the computer takes over and you can't even unplug it. Do you worry about that, or do you worry more about the short to medium term misuses, I think, of the technology is probably the right term, right?
Yeah.
It's both errors in the technology, but there are also misuses of the technology.
Yeah, so that's totally a fair question. I was talking to Jeff Hinton about this.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, I know you and Jeff have a disagreement over this.
Yes, yeah. Actually, we were very civilized on stage. We had a pre-dinner. It was a much more heated conversation.
That's good, 'cause he's an older guy. You have to be nice.
No, but we all love Jeff. But okay, look, we're here at Stanford campus. We're in a liberal art university. We have all walks of discipline. We have philosophers to anthropologists to economists, social scientists. this is the kind of topic. What is sentient? What is consciousness? What is the long-term existential reality? I actually think it's a respectable topic. I genuinely do. And I studied consciousness a tiny bit with his PhD co-advisor, Professor Christoph Koch. He talks about consciousness all the time. I feel like till the day I graduated, I didn't understand what consciousness is. And the reason is these are tough topics. We should talk about it. In the meantime, I find it worrisome if the entire public, including policymakers, are talking about this singular topic that should be more a topic of scholarly debate and discussion, and while forgetting about the true societal impact, the catastrophic risks, the opportunities. We've got disinformation, Nate, disinformation, and
fakes
democracy.
Place, right?
We were talking about this over lunch, right? That's just so deep. I know Mike Fall, we talk about this as well. We've got jobs, John Levine and I don't know, other economists here are really concerned about this. We are we have issues with bias, right? We have issue with privacy. I do healthcare, and I have so many stories to tell you about the tension between what technology can bring, but human dignity and bias. And we've got weaponization, we've got geopolitics, and we've got also public sector crisis in the sense of lack of resource. And I think that's what's important. We have responsibility to talk about this. And I worry that the media or maybe it's not just the media, the oxygen is sucked out in the room of only focusing on this existential topic.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think while that topic is out there, we don't even know the terms yet.
Exactly.
We can't define them yet. So we need to think about these other more immediate uses, which we're going to see soon. We're going to see quickly. We're going to see it in this next election cycle for sure. So
yeah. So by the way, Don has a lot to say. We can talk to Don about sentient. We had a little discussion about that.
Yeah. Well, why don't we? Feifei and I could go all night, but we want to leave a little time for questions. So why don't we open the floor for questions? And I think there's some microphones floating around. So if you just raise your hand, and I told Feifei this crowd was going to ask really tough questions, so I have high expectations for your.
Hi, I work in cybersecurity industry. I'm thinking that the authentication is machine tell it's a human, and then we come up with new technology to bypass it, and then we have a better way. So is there an end to this? What do you think?
Well, first of all, both of us should talk. I want to hear, digital authentication and disinformation.
It's going to be a hard problem. I think there's a lot of, you see all the concern in Congress about AI and not nearly enough about cybersecurity. I think that's a really serious threat nationally as well. And it's a really hard problem, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a continued what's the phrase? I know the perfect Chinese
Leapfrog.
phrase.
Oh, okay. Well, you can tell us. Arms race.
Yeah, arms race between creating fakes and creating authentication technology. Right. And I talked to my colleague Mark Lavoie is a scholar in this domain. He works in Adobe, which is leading a lot of the industry efforts. And Mark has said to me, getting to the source is still going to be the most important defense against deepfake. So yeah, it is a big.
But as the technology gets better and better, it's going to get just harder and harder and harder to tell the difference.
Yeah, hi. I think you alluded to the problem of, I call it, there's a thirst of knowledge on both sides. On the AI side, things like what does it mean to be a human, or what is fairness, and all these questions that could be answered by some departments here at the university or in general by the humanities. On the other hand, the humanities are terrified what's coming. How do we bridge that? It seems to me, just here at Stanford, I don't see that bridge right now, and I'm sure it's like that in most of other institutions around the world. It seems like there's a gap instead of a bridge.
Well, first of all, I do want to respectfully disagree. At Stanford, we have a human-centered AI institute that has been working really hard to try to bridge. I don't think we have done all the job. I agree, but I think there's genuine efforts and trying to bridge this. And there are multiple ways of bridging. One way is education and communication, right? It's scary if this is something that's so new and so unknown, but we really need to do a better job in educating our students, educating our alumni, educating the public, educating policymakers what this is. I think that itself will go a long, long way about what this technology is. But there is other important measures of bridging, including what are we doing that's making it better? What are we doing that's augmenting humanity? What are we doing that is giving transparent, trustworthy information to the public? Our HAI Center for Research on Foundation Model is feverishly doing benchmarking on all these large language models, benchmarking against, say, the EU AI Act transparency measures. These are important efforts to bridge the knowledge gap, as you said, and create trust, create safety and responsibility. But you're right, it's the journey is long, and I wish there's more around the
Interaction, yeah.
around the world.
So, Feifei, maybe one thing you could touch on is this, at the scale of these models, 500 billion parameters or something, the notion that we have explainability, that somebody can say, why did it say this? Or take hallucination. Why does it hallucinate? Do you think this is part of the problem, is that the scale of these models are so big that we really can't explain, when I put A in, why I get B out?
Yeah, so John, I dream of the following thing, but you can tell me I'm delusional. I feel like there's one day we've got to have a beautiful set of equations, like Newton's law or Maxwell equations, that would finally explain the mathematics behind this. Because I don't think we're there yet. We don't have the computer theoretical understanding of why these large language or large models are doing what's doing. We have some sense, you know, the representation and the sequence to sequence encoding and all that, but you know, we don't. So I don't know. Do you feel we'll ever have a set of equations?
I think the problem is, you look at some things they do, and it makes perfect sense. They've memorized, obviously, they've memorized a lot of facts and relationships.
Right.
But every now and then, they put something in that looks like, as it happened with AlphaGo.
Oh, yeah.
You know, in AlphaGo,
Move
which
37?
Yeah, move 37. So the computer made a move that everybody thought, this is the craziest move ever. What's going on here? You've just blown the game. And it turned out it was a brilliant move in retrospect. And it was creative. I mean, he says this is a creative move, right? Lisa just says this is creative. That's a really interesting insight.
Yeah, I think students today should be working on these problems,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Okay, do we have another question from the floor? Over there, I see one, and over here.
Thank you, it's fantastic. How do you see the intersectionality of evolution of synthetic biology and synthetic data, and where AI is actually heading towards the GI pathway? So again, a whole bunch of things will be another level, but throw in a bit of quantum. How are you even envisioning this from a humanist angle, or the near term, what we need to do in terms of even the guardrails or anything we're thinking about?
Yeah, well, E.O. Wilson says the problem of humanity is we have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technologies. So I think everything you have said there is a godlike technology. I don't have a silver bullet. This is why we have Stanford HAI. This is why we need to engage in governance. This is why we need to educate the public and about what is coming. I do believe in humanity. I think from that point of view, I know I've been called an optimist. I believe in humanity. I believe in human resilience, creativity. I also believe in the arc of human civilization bends towards benevolence and justice. I'm clearly stealing Dr. King's line here, but from that premise, I believe our collective creativity and partnership will figure out the necessary guardrails. That's my. What about
No,
you?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think you're right. The arc bends in the right direction. There are sometimes setbacks or periods where things don't move in the right direction over a period, but over the long term, it tends to move in the right direction. After all, when you become a parent, your vision of the world and ensuring that the world you pass on is going to be a great one changes completely, right?
Yeah.
Wait till you become a grandparent, and you'll really see. We have time for a few more questions over here.
Thank you, and thank you for this wonderful conversation. I actually wanted to kind of tie to the last thing you mentioned about having kids. For both of you, what is the world you envision in 50 years? Or in 40 years when your kids are maybe my age? What is the world that you think, what do you think the world is going to look like then?
My kids are your age, so it's...
Well, you have grandkids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I envision that humans and machines cohabitat. I do believe robots will come in different forms and shapes. Humanity's productivity will change. Of course, we have to talk about the workforce change. You know, there's a lot of economists here in the audience, so I'm a little too shy to give my prediction. But I do think that we will hit yet another, at least one more, but I'm sure many more inflection points where the machines will be partners and collaborators with humans.
And I hope we're going to use all this technology and progress we've made on the AI side and machine learning to make the kind of breakthroughs we need to maintain our planet and give it to our children in some form where it's still habitable. So I think that's going to be a critical issue going forward. But I'm actually excited about this frontier where machine learning and other science problems come together.
Absolutely.
You've done a lot of work on medicine, for example, Feifei, but that's only one of many areas.
Scientific discovery is absolutely the most exciting part of today's AI. This is why academia is so important, because we've got, all kinds of scientists on campus and social scientists doing incredible work.
Right, right. Okay.
Do you think maybe like intelligence might be like a bit overrated?
Who's?
Just echoing thoughts of Yuval Noah Harari, who's voiced that you can argue that humans have become more intelligent, have had at least more access to tools that allow us to be more intelligent, but that doesn't necessarily make us less destructive or self-destructive. And in touching on the vision that you were painting, Feifei, about building these entities that are capable of love and all of resilience and strength, a lot of these beautiful human virtues. Do you really think we're headed in the right direction with that when we were talking about building AGI, or is there something more like artificial wisdom? Can you touch on that?
I can sense that you actually probably are more worried about this. You asked me, do I really believe? I do believe in human virtues. I actually think when you talk about human intelligence, it's not just the mathematical, rational intelligence, it's our compassion, it's our empathy. These are the things animals really don't have much, right? So I do believe in human virtues. Are we headed in the right direction? As we said, I guess you've got two optimists on the stage. I'm not saying every step of the way will be perfect. We might even take really wrong steps. Look at from Rutherford splitting atom to an atomic bomb to nuclear energy. I mean, we've done good things, bad things, good things. So I think we're going to go through that in AI. But I do believe we can. I really believe we can, as a species, as a civilization, that we can bring this to a better world.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, you mentioned self-driving cars. I mean, the last 10% of getting self-driving cars to work is really hard. On the other hand, 1 million people die in car accidents around the world every day. I'm convinced that in the next decade, we will be able to cut that number by 90%. And you won't get everything right, but you'll certainly, and for us people getting older who find driving at night a bigger challenge, or for some of you that might have had a glass of wine before you got in your car, we'll make it a lot safer. So I think there are great things that can be done here.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, for being here, and thank you for the book. I look forward to reading it. You were one of the public faces inadvertently in the Google and DoD Project Maven issue as it arose, and some of your correspondence became revealed in the pages of the New York Times in the discussion about that. I'm wondering, how has your thinking evolved? Because at that point in history, the world maybe seemed a lot more at peace. And since that time, we've had the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the recent, of course, initiation of a war with Israel and Hamas. That shows that conflict is ongoing, and with the Russian intent to destabilize our elections, geopolitics hasn't ended. The DoD is continuing to express interest in AI. And from that point, working with Project Maven, it has evolved internally into a center within the DoD to try and guide the use of the adoption of AI. What do you think about the ethics, and has your point of view evolved since that time in terms of using these technological advancements in the defense of democracies?
Yeah, great question. So this is why John and I were saying 2017, around that time, AI and tech become messy, because it started to hit the world in a multi-dimensional way that before we were just in the lab, right? Like if you do ImageNet, it sounds great, but it doesn't. But once you get into weaponization, defense, election, and all that, did I evolve? I think I became more, I learned more from my colleagues, but my human-centered belief of using technology for the good hasn't changed. But I learned a lot more about how nuanced and how multidimensional this issue is, right? Like take defense. I don't know how many people are in this audience. We all have such different ways of defining defense, defining weapon, defining where we stand in terms of using technology for weapon. Human civilization is a history book of technology and wars, basically, right? So we all have different we come in different opinions. Personally, I'm devoted to using AI for much more focused in human-centered use. This is why I work so much in healthcare and basic science research. But I hear you, and I think, I continue to be a public face talking about this. But one thing I gotta tell you, I've learned through that experience as well as today, is I've learned to be more vocal about the messiness of AI. None of us have all the answers. Acknowledging the messiness, acknowledging how tough this question is, acknowledging as a computer scientist, I'm not fully trained in every aspect of this. This is why I go to Nate's place and talk about, democracy. I go to my different colleagues. And I think we need to have that humility, whether you're AI technologist or some other expert. We should have the humility to learn, to engage in respectful discussion, to actually allow different voices. This is so important in today's university. So that's my learning.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Feifei. And I think the thing to remember is software is a tool, but it's a somewhat universal tool. Unlike a car, what can you use a car to do? You can use a car to drive. You can't use a car to hammer a nail or to do something else. But software has this property, so it's very hard to distinguish between somebody's defense is somebody else's offense, and that's just a product of the kind of software we build. And there's not, that nuance is really going to be hard to explain to people as we go forward.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one. We'll take one more, and then Feifei has a lot of books to sign, so.
Thank you so much for this wonderful session. And I have so many questions on AGI, applied AI, but I think the most important question I have is something that you inspired with your thanks and the view around the generations you've thanked today. Given that we stand at the dawn of AI and the threshold of AI, what advice would you give to your kids and my kids' generation, given the conversation we just had about the excitement, but also the messiness of AI?
You know, I want to say, just tell your kids to love their mothers.
And read books, read books.
And fathers.
And fathers.
But just going back to the theme of this book, really find your North Star. I think it's just, you know, technology is becoming more and more powerful. Human life is becoming more and more complex. The world, look, I'm keenly aware where we are today in time and history. So many conflicts, so much suffering. But for the young generation, find your North Star. And for the parents, allow your kids to find that North Star. Give them the freedom, give them the love. If you want them to love you back, love them first. And that's more important than anything AI related.
That seems like a perfect place to end. Thank you, Feifei.
Thank you, John.